December 30th, 2021, and this is going to be for the upcoming Capricorn new moon at 12 degrees 20 minutes of Capricorn. And it's also going to be about the new Mayan 13-day period of rain that we're going to be moving in the same day as the new moon. So it all kind of creates a signature and a synthesis that we kind of want to talk about. So here's some of the aspects at the time of this January 2nd new moon in Capricorn. It's making a trine to Uranus, making a square to Chiron, a sextile to Neptune, and it kind of has that Pluto conjunct Venus retrograde kind of flavor and energy mixed in with it. Some other aspects that are happening at the time of this new moon is Mercury makes a trine to the North Node. We have the Saturn square Uranus kind of still vibe going on in the air. And I kind of put down that this is the point in time when Uranus wins out against Saturn, although the ghost, the patterns, the organizational patterns or ghosts in that sense may continue. I mentioned in my last report at the end there that I kind of see this as a time of death for the narrative that's been going on since 2020, like the actual death. That's kind of the death, the healing and recovery, and it's time to turn the page and start a new chapter and move on. It's kind of that element of death is about moving on and taking the next step forward, living life and living the next chapter. But sometimes people get stuck in the old memory or the old death of the previous chapter. They don't want to let go of the story. They don't want to let go of the narrative. And so what we'll be dealing with, living with, and walking through is being able to discern the reality, like the actual deeper reality of what's really happening versus the ghost-like narrative that may continue on in the minds of others. That's that Capricornian energy. Capricorn kind of, it's geared towards holding on to tradition and holding on to the past in the name of security. But anyway, I'm not going to get stuck on that too much, but I wanted to kind of bring that in because this Capricorn new moon makes that trine to Uranus. And so there's a great element for breaking up that which holds us and bonds us to particular ideas. It's kind of like that Uranus wants to come through that and awaken, and it's not holding on to the pre-established establishments or ideas of the past, traditions of the past in that sense, especially if they've outlived their purpose and usefulness. But it's the breaking up and making way for new perspectives to come through. I see that with that trine to Uranus. There's a square to Chiron, and I kind of see that as setting the tone of, how do we deal with healing? Chiron was the teacher and the healer, and in the sign of Aries, we're going through a process of being taught by spirit on how to come into a new perspective on healing. I mentioned a little bit of that in the last report. Aries kind of has that pioneering aspect, so it's like, we are destined to rediscover that pioneering aspect of ourselves, especially on how to deal with health beyond, the modern perspective of the use of technology and the pharmacy-oriented approach or the magic pill approach. If you take this magic pill, whatever if your toe hurts or whatever you got going on, it'll cure it. So this is inviting us. It's beckoning us to move into new territory, Uranian territory, where we can actually discover different ways to approach old problems or even new problems. So we have that Mercury trine the North Node. Once again, that's mentally we need to move in unfamiliar, unknown territory. I talked a little bit about the Saturn square Uranus in the previous report, and I mentioned that Mercury is currently in its shadow before it goes retrograde this coming January 14th. So we're going to start seeing a little bit of that, the vibes of reviewing mentally the lessons that we need to learn and that we need to reorient mentally in how we communicate and how we connect the dots, and especially what we're doing with all the information that we bring into our minds. So with Capricorn, the esoteric personality mantra is let ambition rule and let the door stand wide. So that's kind of that personality lower aspect that people can get seduced into with the Capricornian energy, is that unbridled ambition and, you know, having the door wide open for anything to come in and go out kind of thing. It's just that that ambition to be, I guess, the king or the queen, or to you know, getting lost in one's identity or self-importance. The esoteric mantra is lost am I in light supernal, yet on that light I turn my back, you know. And it's been mentioned that in association, I've heard that being mentioned in association with Martin Luther King Jr. It's the idea of the learned person or the initiate through their own experiences and hardships and awakening or enlightenment kind of traverses the mountain and reaches that mountaintop, that place of wide perspective, and they, in that sense, see that light, that supernal light. They see, you know, it's like I think of Martin Luther King Jr. when he says, I have a dream. You know, all realities are precluded by the dream. All manifestations are, you know, what comes before is the dream or the idea, and then we have to go through the process of manifesting it. So I think of that Martin Luther King. You know, he went to that mountaintop and he had that wide view and he had that dream for a better, you know, and we remember him for this, for all humanity. But you know, at that point, it's like what that saying is that yet on that light, on that. You know, some people can kind of get lost or say, I'm done, you know, I'm just going to have my enlightenment, I'm going to have my, you know, my visions, and I'm just going to, like, you know, sit on my mountaintop and just kind of stay there. I'm not going to really. So when it says, yet on that light I turn my back, it's saying that the person makes the individual choice to come back down from the mountain because there's a recognition of the suffering of humanity. And to come back from that mountain and bring that light down to help others. And so that's kind of, you know, where we think of Martin Luther King. And we can also think of a lot of other people through history who have similar stories. So it's not just knowing that light, but it's descending back from the mountain of Capricorn and bringing it, you know, into circulation, which is Aquarius, for the rest of humanity and for communities and for other people. So that's kind of some of the energy with this new moon, is to bring that light back and ground it. You know, Capricorn is very grounding energy. It has to do with the third ray of intelligence, and I believe the seventh ray as well. But there's a grounding energy, and it's that energy of, you know, bringing that light and that wisdom into concrete organization and manifestation here in the here and now, making it practical and real. And so right now, you know, is a time of the practical mystic. So it's bringing those mystical ideas and grounding them and making them practical and useful. It's kind of like, you know, you think of yoga and certain technologies in that sense that actually have effect, proven effect, and it's through the practical repetition and understanding of those technologies that are mystical that we actually find beneficial use for them right here and now. So with Capricorn, we have the process of the mountain goats, the sea goats, and then there's the unicorn in that sense. So what do we have here? We have the mountain goat in its first stage, or it's in its mutable cross stage, is very ambitious oriented. So you want to be looking for this in this next coming month. Where do your perspectives lie between like ambition and the desire to accumulate material things? That's Capricorn is an earth sign. And then we move on to the sea goats, which is where the duality of matter and spirit is discovered, and you come into a higher consciousness of being able to balance that internal battle between getting too attached to that which is the physical, the earthly, and having a connection and a relationship to spirit and having that balance. And then there's the third, which is where you bring in the unicorn. It's the fusing of the two horns of the mountain goat, which is that relationship, that duality between spirit and matter. And that brings one to a place where they're kind of referred to as the one-pointed disciple or initiate, where they're able to actually completely focus without being distracted, and they have that relationship, that balance between the physical and the earthly, and the spirit, and how to bring that forward. So this is a period of time where we want to be very careful on the steps that we make forward and think things out very practically. And we want to think for longer periods ahead. It's like I mentioned this before. What we do right now, we should have in mind how it affects generations, like 7 generations ahead of us, or more than that. The steps that we take right now are really important. We should be very careful on how we make these steps and decisions in our life and as a society and a community. So the theme right now, it's just that to seek total freedom and transformation within yourself, and then second, within the world or the community at large. And it's the idea that you are a diamond hidden within the earth, hidden within the coal. You're a diamond that's hidden within an identity, and that identity, in a sense, limits and obscures your true self. And so a lot of the process that we go through as individuals is rediscovering and cutting through the illusions of that limiting outer self that we've been taught to associate with, and to rediscover the diamond within, which is the true freedom and the true liberty and transformation that we actually hold within. What is it? Diamond, I think it was, the root word was Ataman, but it basically translated to invincible. So we're working our way back to our invincible true self, which is really soul, and even beyond that, spirit. So this that's part of a theme of with this new moon, is the dedication, that Capricornian dedication, to move beyond the subtle illusions to that deeper, more diamond-like centered self of soul. So this new moon, Capricorn new moon, is conjunct the fixed star of Nunki, which translates as the sea, and this particular star is in the vein of the arrow being drawn by the archer. So it's that archer of Sagittarius, drawing that bow back, and the star is within the back portion of the vein of that arrow. So, I see this as expansion and aspiration. The Venus retrograde right now, she's moving backwards. She's retrograding, and that direction is back towards the sign, in the direction of the sign of Sagittarius, the archer. So part of the death, rebirth, and rediscovery through this Venus retrograde is the rediscovery of where we really want to expand, where we really want to aspire, where we really want to become, optimistic, or where we really feel alive in the direction we want to go with that. And it's these planets, Mercury and Venus retrograding back in that direction, that kind of like aligns with that, and this fixed star, this expansion and ability to rediscover what we really aspire towards, what our dreams are. So the sea connects all land masses. It's kind of it's the water, the liquid that actually connects all land masses. It sort of has its touch on all land masses, all continents, so it's the connector between them all. Right now there can be issues with this Mayan 13-day period of rain as well. There can be issues with travel, potentially airplanes, government and business, and the communications going on with those things. So we'll have to see how that kind of plays out. The sea, as the symbol of the mother and the matrix of all intelligent forms. So there's going to be, an element of that mothering matrix kind of energy. We may see new forms emerge that are to be established for longer periods of time. For better or for worse, I guess we'll have to see, but this could be a time when that sort of generates. And the sea, we can also align the sea and Venus in a way with the water, the desire body, the astral, the feminine. And so this is, a time of monitoring one's emotions. I also put conscious sexuality and expressive mastery over desires. So that's just saying, sexual energy is one thing that definitely dominates the consciousness of most of humanity. And it's coming into a higher consciousness of sex and how that can be taken to higher octaves, higher levels than just simple pleasure or procreation. And then it's the dealing with desires. I kind of mentioned that a little bit in the last report and this report, but it's how we work through our attractions and desires, and how we, transform them, how we transform them as poisons, which they can be many times, into medicines, and kind of how we deal with how hooked we are or addicted to wanting particular things. And sometimes not wanting certain things, and how we get hooked into what we don't want. So on January 2nd, we're going to start the Mayan 13-day period of rain, and it's going to go from January 2nd to January 14th as a 13-day period. It's ruled by Cauac, the storm god of lightning and thunder, so there's that Jupiterian element of expansion and creativity. And it does have to do with potent creativity, and it's, the rain, it's the energy that makes the seed sprout when it's in the earth. And this new moon is making a sextile to Neptune. So, this is going to excite, this is going to generate Neptunian qualities. Do we get lost in illusion? Do we get lost in the ephemeral, or are we able to have that trust that I kind of talked about in the previous report about death, on how to move forward even though we can't see what's going to happen in the new unknown territory? And it's the idea that walls that have been built with bricks of ignorance must now dissolve. So, with that new moon making a trine to Uranus, this is going to help facilitate that. But it's going to be challenging with that square to Chiron. It's some walls must be built, and then some walls must be taken down. And, we'll have to see kind of how that plays out. But, I kind of see this energy as, Capricorn wants to build something that's going to last long into the future. But if you kind of reverse that energy, if you still use that energy, but you apply it to the idea of taking down something, that also can be applied to something that extends greatly into the future. So we should think right now about what in your life, or what narratives in the collective, or what actual walls or whatever need to actually be taken down. With that Jupiter in Pisces, that's going to help facilitate that quite a bit. There's going to be, a lot of boundaries or walls, kind of in that sense, becoming transparent or actually dissolving. So, with that being said, I want to elaborate on this Mayan 13-day period of rain. So on January 5th, on the Mayan day 4 wind, we have Venus retrograde sextile Neptune. I can see that is really positive in a sense, helping us reorient to where, like I said earlier, what we really desire, where we really want to place what we desire, in conjunction with where we want to go with it towards the future, and getting better perspective on that. That can also potentially lead to huge challenges for some people that fall into confusion or depression. So, kind of be on the lookout for that too, and how you can bring yourself out of that if that's what you're going through, or help others if you see them going through that. At the same time, on the 5th, the moon moves into Pisces. So that can be a beautiful period of just sort of stepping back and allowing yourself to really get the picture of where that wants to go. It's with that moon in Pisces, it may not be a time to really just take solid action. Wait till that moon moves into Aries. Shortly after that, on January 8th, the Mayan day 7 snake, we have the sun conjunct Venus, and that's where we also have the Venus star point at 8 degrees of Capricorn. And at this point, 8 degrees, it's conjunct the fixed star of Fascius, which is basically the nebula in front of the archer's face, before the eyes of the archer. So if it's kind of that simple, the archer is trying to draw the bow and focus on where he wants that arrow to go, but it's also something that nebula is there. There's an obscuring of vision, and I kind of talked about this a little bit. I guess you're going to have to go through a period of trying to review where you want to aim for the future, yet there's going to be something in the way kind of blocking your vision to be able to see what that actually is. And in some cases it will require patience. In other cases, you may have to just without knowing where that arrow is going to, assuming you're aiming at a target, I'm not saying that with recklessness, but you're going to have to let that arrow go and see if you hit the target. So, but that on January 8th, while that's happening with that Venus star point, and I'll talk more about this in a report specifically about the Venus retrograde, it happens on the Mayan day 7 snake. And so the snake energy, with all 3 points of this Venus retrograde, the beginning of it, the star point, and then the end of it, have to do with this snake energy. So this is really going through the conflict and transforming that conflict and walking through the conflict. So a lot of people can tend to want to avoid. I'm going to tie this in with that Jupiter in Pisces. There can be a lot of avoidance, a lot of denial with that kind of energy. And so, there's going to have to be going through a lot of this conflict in order to find resolution, and actually having to fight, to keep yourself in the right place in order to get through that conflict in a sense. So we have Mercury trine the North Node. I think I mentioned that. So with the Mayan 13-day period of rain, it can be excessive. So during this 13-day period from January 2nd to the 14th, we can see, in addition to creativity, a strong excess in either direction, like feast or famine, or too much of something or not enough of something. So that's like, flooding can be a potential thing that happens. And so it's that kind of energy too, where you can offer somebody help, but they may not accept the help. Or it can be reversed, but it can be a hard and challenging 13-day period. The trick, I think, is to just sort of like stay steady, and it's like how you channel that conflict, as I mentioned, into creativity or co-creativity the best possible way you can. Let's see what else here. With rain, we think of precipitation, that's vertical waters. It's that connecting of heaven and earth. And it's a symbiotic relationship between the sky and the earth, and that which connects the two. And then, of course, water is just, life-giving. Water is related to emotion. Water is that which animates and brings something to life. So with this 13-day period, there's some connections to Mercury, Saturn, and Uranus. And I see a little bit of Aries as well as Pisces. So it's kind of the beginning and the end of those creative aspects. Aries pierces through and brings something forward. And there's like that element of initiation. Sometimes, what is it? That which doesn't kill us makes us stronger. It's that Nietzsche quote. But it's, despite challenges, persisting and continuing forward. And it is that you will come through it, and you will come through it stronger and wiser than you did before, kind of energy. There's also an element, rain, cleanses, the cleansing and renewal that happens after a rain, where everything is kind of fresh. Or there can be that, once again, that element as well of storms and flooding. So, being in the winter in the northern hemisphere here, we may see storms, but that have to do a lot with snow or ice in extreme ways, or we may even see flooding in other areas. With that, some negative manifestations of this 13-day period can lead to anxiety. It's that new moon trine Uranus, or we can have perfectionism, isolation. People dealing with isolation. So if you're a person that's kind of a weak spot for you, you need to find ways to deal with it and transform it into using your time of isolation to be creative, or something of that nature. It can also have to do with restlessness, hardship, suffering, escapism. I kind of mentioned some of those things. Other aspects can be like impregnation, or the creativity of conception. I know there's two different, but it's the idea of the beginning, the starting of something, the starting point, the seed sprouting. So this can kind of be a time focused around that. It has a very youthful and curious kind of energy in that sense. This can be a great time for really kind of amping up the awareness around animals and caring for animals, rehabilitating animals, sharing information about animals that need help. And then we also have the idea that things can become way too much. And, I think I mentioned this, that many times people can refuse help during this period, which can be frustrating or saddening. This period can also have to do with glitches in communication, and for this reason, this Mayan 13-day period combined with the shadow phase of Mercury retrograde in Capricorn. Mercury actually will go station retrograde on the last day of this Mayan 13-day period. So I see this Mercury retrograde that's going to be happening as a more extreme example of a Mercury retrograde. there could be like really large potential glitches in communication, whatever that may be, whether it's just how you say something to somebody else and then they translate it in the wrong way, and then it creates problems or negativity, or it could be like actual outages with internet, potentially related to storms. There are upsides to this, and that's when you move in kind of to the abstract, which is highly associated with the rain, because it has to do with ideation and ideas. But some of the positives are that sometimes, because we don't know how things, we're so trained to think of how things work out linearly and logically, that when things don't, sometimes pieces of the puzzle fit together that we could have never imagined through simple glitches of communication, or something that came up out of the blue, new information that took us in a new direction that led us to something that you would never have discovered before. And so it's the idea that A doesn't always lead to B. Sometimes A goes to Q, and then Q goes to B, and then B goes to C, and then it's the idea that not everything is cut and dry linear, like we like it to be sometimes, and it can it can end up in either direction, good or bad. But those are some of the higher aspects of the positive that can happen with that. So just a quick note on January 3rd, going back a little bit, we have Jupiter square the nodes, and that's like a huge theme that ties into 2022, as well as the Jupiter in Pisces. So it's where have we excessively gone overboard in the name of love? That kind of like wanting to, there's that kind of the idea of the motherly love can be like too much sometimes, like excessive mother energy that can kind of like smother the child, or that person that the mother is caring for. I guess that could be more of a negative quality of that mothering energy, as opposed to just simply, the nurturing and the upbringing. So it's kind of like the question of where have we excessively gone overboard in the name of love, and also where are we too righteous? And I'm tying this in with that Jupiter square the nodes. What conflicts in relation to Jupiter, and the karma that we're creating by making decisions as we go. How do we work through that? Where have we been too righteous and too fixed and not malleable enough, or where have we been too dogmatic? Where have we been kind of the preacher, too much of the preacher, like telling people that our way is the own way? And we can also think of, where have we been too Jupiterianly excessive in the name of love to uphold a particular idea, when it actually may be doing more harm than the good that we're basing it on, or that we're saying it's all in love, but it may actually be causing more harm than good. So these are good things to review during this period. Anyway, with that, thanks for checking out the report. Much love. My name is Billy Kyle. See you soon. Bye-bye.